But there you go. Next up, Mr. Black, the StarCraft 2 community has not been this banded together and active since LAGTV was still pulling down hundreds of thousands of views of video. Mr. Black, shit has been on fire for the last 48 hours.
I wish we still were today. Oh, man, I wish we did.
My God, don't I also. A new patch was released this week from the Balance Council, and opinions on it have been strong to say the least, which means it could either be the worst, but also it could be the best patch of all time. Hard to guess, really. So I thought, hey, lots of people were coming into my stream and saying, oh man, I can't wait to hear your guys' opinion on this StarCraft patch, as if we are the arbiters of anything to do with StarCraft patches. But you know what? We're going to fucking do it, because there's no other news this week, so we're going to sit down, have a chin wag about the patch notes for StarCraft 2.
Wow.
Have you looked over these already, Mr. Black?
I briefly went over them when the internet was on fire back in like, was it 3 days ago?
2 days ago at most, yeah.
Yeah. I kind of briefly went over them. I have not played the patch at all. That'll change today, but outside of that, yeah, it looks like a hot steaming pile of ass. We keep it a buck.
You know what? So when I was reading these patch notes earlier today, I dropped off Em at work. I got my food on the way home and parked the car to have my coffee. Pulled the phone up, pulled the patch notes up, started reading. I was kind of with them in like the top half of this fucking list of patch notes. I'm reading. We're gonna go over them. I was like, wow, some of this is actually like sounds like an interesting and likely probable way to deal with some of the issues that are currently going on. Like, okay, I see you, I see where it's going. And then when you get to the bottom, like third, and the tires fall off, the dumpster is lit on fire, there's people crying and screaming, just a blubbery mess. It's a complete shit show. People are literally just shitting their pants in public. It's terrible. And so shall we go over exactly why it is that way? So
Go for it.
I will read what their goals are. So because they said what their goals were with this patch. So the first goal is to nerf defensive and camping playstyles for all races, both related to early and late game on higher levels of play. We will target specific units, buildings, and abilities suited for camping to promote more active gameplay across all stages of the game. That's everyone wants to hear that. Now, how you go about doing that is a little bit more difficult, but that's a really nice thing to hear. Nobody likes turtling without being able to be punished in some way. The second goal is to continue reshaping Protoss tools for high-level gameplay. That sentence is the nice way of saying Protoss hasn't won a single championship in the last fucking decade. It's been nothing but Zerg, and now we feel bad, so maybe we'll balance it for the high end. We believe there is still a major gap between how Protoss race plays and feels on the highest level of play and the levels below. Current set of changes aims to make Protoss race slightly more efficient with the strongest and smartest execution, while helping Terran and Zerg players against Protoss on lower levels. That was kind of like my first red flag. And it was a red flag for me, maybe it's the same reason for you, because they mentioned trying to balance the high end and the low end at the same time. I'm not 100% convinced that's possible. I think that at best you can do a mediocre job of balancing for both ends of the scale, but you never fully satisfy one or the other. You kind of have to almost pick a lane.
Yep.
And so they have to decide, is it more important that more Protoss players win championships, or is it more important that whoever's playing on the ladder doesn't, pull their hair out and quit the game at some random time? But we'll see how they went about that. The third goal would be to provide strong playstyle alternatives for various matchups. Zergs might now be better equipped to use ground-based armies against mass air strategies, and some of the Terran mech units are now more efficient in harassment or certain straight-up fight scenarios. Lastly, we would like to continue adding overall gameplay and quality of life improvements viable across all levels of play. Then they go on to thank everyone for screaming at them and calling them assholes for long periods of time, and then they list the changes. So first up, we got Protoss, Mr. Black. So we're starting in your neck of the woods right off the rip. I was real interested in what they were going to do with Protoss because on the high end, Protoss has been getting clapped for a long time. First up, shield battery overcharge ability has been removed entirely. And if you read that first line without any other context, your first thought is, what? But with some context, it's still crazy, but it at least makes more sense than just reading the first line. New ability is added now, Energy Overcharge. Energy Overcharge costs 50 energy and recharges 100 energy of the targeted allied unit or structure with a maximum range of 8. So that's within range 8 of any given nexus, or no, shield battery itself. So, this removes the automation of shield batteries to some degree. Which means you're more micro-intensive, rewards people for paying attention. Kind of like, I guess, maybe their idea with this was they were trying to be like, all right, well, Zerg with Queens, they have to transfuse. So why don't we make Protoss click a button to accomplish a similar goal? Maybe that was where they were trying to take this. 8 range is substantial. That's almost the max range of the longest range units in the game. And so that's nothing to sneeze at. I'll read the developer comments for this change, and then I'll let Mr. Black share his thoughts on this. While being one of the most important tools in the Protoss defenses, shield battery overcharge is also one of the most frustrating abilities to play against, and it's overall more efficient at the lower levels of play, unlike other defensive techniques like transfuse or mass repair. Instead of this ability, there is a new tool which can help empower Protoss support units like Sentries, Oracles, and or High Templar during defense. The ability can still be used to restore shield battery energy, but it is expected to perform much weaker in this scenario than shield battery overcharge.
And
so
you know what they do?
What are your thoughts?
And they have the nerve to then put a GIF underneath that
To show
of Protoss. Yeah, where they're showing a Zerg at a ramp trying to get up, but it's force fielded. And by the way, this Protoss is dying, by the way. Like, this game is over, so Protoss is already dead. So that's probably not a good thing to show when you're making a very clear, massive nerf. But on top of that, what it does is it shows that the sentries are all out of energy. And well, they're currently being killed as well, but they're all out of energy. And just as the force field is about to dissipate, they use the overcharge to give the sentry more energy, and then the sentry throws down another force field, buying a little bit more time. But at the same time, you see that same Zerg dropping down a hot fire mixtape with a Ravager on a cannon that is unpowered. So the cannon isn't even shooting, but instead they could, in theory, just use the hot fire mixtape to destroy the force field in the first place. This is fundamentally the biggest nerf to Protoss I have ever seen in the history of StarCraft 2. Legacy of the Void and the way that this game has gone, if you do not have overcharge, there are so many types of builds that both Terran, Zerg, and or Protoss can use to instantly win. There are timings in which you are fucked. Now, I haven't played this, so I don't know for sure what the hell is the massive... The thing is they're trying to appease, just what Adam said, both beginner players and the elite players. The thing is, at this stage in the game, with minimal support, they ought to appease the ones that are grinding out their game and keeping the player pool alive. Now, are they doing this because all this shit is going on Xbox Game Pass, and they're expecting a large amount of new players to come in, and if they pick Protoss, they're just going to get dummied? I don't think so. Protoss isn't even that great of a race. It has universally been known to be the weakest race out of all three for the entire time that StarCraft 2 has been out, outside of maybe one patch. Period. And then you've got these fucking Terran and Zerg players screaming from the mountaintops telling you that you're brain dead if you play Protoss and it's an easy race. Yet if you look at virtually all of the metrics, it shows you on any competitive level, and I'm not talking about the top 15 players in the world here. I'm talking like the top 500, top 1,000. Protoss gets the shit into the stick almost every time in every patch. So once I read Overcharge was gone, I was like, okay, that's gone. What other buff are we getting here? So why don't you keep going, Adam? We'll see what buffs.
Yeah.
And I'm a Protoss player. I am biased, and I understand this. But my God, even the biggest Protoss haters out there are like, dude, what?
So, for me, I'll give my opinion as somebody who would be on the shit, the shit end of this whole thing. Because if I were to pick up the game and play it right now, I'd be basically as close to greenhorn as you could get, despite staring at it for a decade. I like the idea. I just don't know if I like the execution. Like I said before, I think that in their minds, to some degree, they were trying to look at this the way that, from a defensive point, similar to the Zergs, where it's a transfuse situation. So this would be like the Protoss version of transfusion. So I like that idea. I just don't know if I don't think I like this version of the execution of that idea. I would have almost been okay if they had left shield batteries as they were, but removed automatically being able to recharge everything, and having the battery recharge a chunk at a time, and have the player have to choose what's getting a recharge. Like Shield's batteries back in Brood War. You had to click on the fucking thing, and that gives you a similar idea. The difference being is that, of course, you would want to, when you're doing that, have an extended range to help ease that off. That I would be probably better off or be more happier with than this. Now, they mentioned being able to charge other units as well that require mana, and that's why they showed this GIF with the sentries. But I don't think there's any universe in which any of the current types of early game attacks that this kind of a situation would happen, that this is beneficial in any way, shape, or form. And ironically, at the point in the game in which they are showing it here, shield batteries, you need to have even if you had more units in this instance, you'd need to have 3 or 4 shield batteries to hold a ramp like that. With a reasonable amount of units. It's just kind of how it goes. So yeah, I would rather them have maintained everything, all else being equal, and just changing it to, selecting your shield batteries and using them.
The thing is they don't want as much turtling, right? But the thing is Protoss is not a turtle race.
Yeah.
It just isn't. How many
it's never been a turtle race.
Have you ever heard a commentator just say, "Oh, here we go, turtling toss"?
Yeah, never happens.
No. Zerg can turtle via lurkers, via spine, spores, queens with transfuse, just creep spread, kind of just keep going, turtle,
It's too expensive for a Protoss to turtle because they rely on technology or tech tree more than the other races to sustain into the mid game.
Now, what Protoss does is there is a small window in which they rely on the shield batteries for a quote-unquote turtle, but it's not a turtle, it's a hold, because of the certain timing attacks. If you don't, even in PvP, you'd get a 3-gate robo push, and as long as you got the shield battery up in time, there and you were good enough with micro, you could hold this. Now that doesn't exist, I can't imagine what PvP looks like right now. I actually don't. I'm curious. My PvP win rate would probably go up, but when it comes to Terran turtles. Zerg can turtle. Protoss does not turtle. Now, the one benefit I see to this, and what would have actually been a buff, is to allow this to still happen, but still allow your shield battery to do what they do so you can pick and choose. Because I think that this thing can help you in the late game, because you don't rely on shield batteries in the late game. You just don't. You rely on shield batteries in the early game, which were abusive in terms of like doing proxy void rays against Terran, and it took much more skill to stop than it was to do. This I can admit. But you weren't really using an overcharge at the time. You were just using your shield batteries. One thing that I can see this being a help to is against ghosts, and which, by the way, didn't get nerfed, which is a fucking meme. That, don't even get me started on that. It's even worse than that. Yeah, that is insanity. Whoever is on the council for this, they should be fired immediately. That's nuts. But the only thing that I think this helps with is when your brain dead ghosts just spam EMP and fucking destroy all of your shields on all of your units instantaneously with huge AoE effect. You can use your shield battery to regenerate a Templar to then do a Storm. I can see that working. And that still requires APM, that still requires focus, and that also requires a Terran to not then realize that this is now happening. Because what Terrans normally do, they hotkey a bunch of ghosts, they spam click, your whole army gone, half your shields are gone, so half your health is basically evaporated instantly. And then what they're going to do is they're going to wait. They're going to wait for you to do that, and they're going to keep a couple of ghosts, and they're going to fucking do it again. This is what's going to happen. So, horrible. This is horrible. Horrible.
Next up, the Colossus, the giraffe. The shield and HP are changed from 150 to 150 200 to 100 250, and I would hazard a guess that this is one of the few ways that in an indirect manner they are trying to skirt ghosts. This is about the only thing I could think of when I saw this. They're giving less shields more health, so the shields are not as impactful if they are deleted. It gives them more survivability when a Terran does just pepper the whole fucking field with an EMP, giving them 50 more base health instead of the shields might actually help with that. Developer comment, with no battery overcharge, having more shields is no longer crucial for key Protoss units like the Colossus. Instead, having more health will be helpful against EMP in Protoss versus Terran matchups, and will also be more rewarding for armor upgrade investments instead of shield investments. I feel like that's fine and had to happen for the points that they made. It is one of the few ways that aids against EMPs. And it's true that if you are going to nerf the shield battery so hard, shields aren't as important as well. But that part I don't think actually means anything. I think the most important part of that change is in fact just survivability after getting EMP'd. Then we have Tempest. This is a really interesting one because Tempests, as we've discussed on LAGTV in the last few weeks, have become very popular. Very common to see Protoss at all levels. We've seen people in gold straight through Masters get into late game scenarios where they are heavily investing in Tempests. Supply costs for Tempest have been reduced from 5 to 4. Damage point decreased from 0.119 to 0.0857, which is a 28% reduction. Damage point is a really fucking stupid term. I had to look and see what the hell that even means. What it means is essentially the time between attacking, moving, attacking again. So stutter step. How they called that damage point? Couldn't fucking tell you. Attack range versus air has decreased from 14 to 13, presumably to get people to not be too overpowered with this new ability to micro the stutter step on them faster. And really, air versus air to air 13 range is still a fucking country mile, so it's not the end of the world. The developer comments, Tempests are a very important late-game tool for Protoss players, but their high supply cost combined with the average damage output makes them the ultimate Protoss army weaker in the in head-to-head fights. This set of changes will help high-level Protoss players fit more power into their maxed armies and have more opportunities for micro, while slightly decreasing the unit's maximum attack range to not strengthen mass Tempest armies. How are we feeling about that one, Mr. Black?
I mean, sure. I mean, it's in my opinion, this is a buff.
I would agree it's a buff.
It's a buff, even though that the range is decreased by 1. The fact you're going to be able to stutter step 28% faster because they are slow. It's like
28% is substantial, though.
You know,
That's going to make a big difference.
Now we're speeding that up. Here's the thing, man. Can you even survive to get to Tempest at this point? I don't know.
It's very true.
Like,
it's going to be more challenging.
Like, in what world? I just like, I'm very, very interested to see how Protoss can survive by the 7-8 minute mark against aggressive players that are really tight at timings. How do you do that? You're going to have to do it in a very specific manner, and then they're going to transition in a way that's going to cripple you. I don't know. But hey, this is a buff. This is a good Tempest buff.
Is definitely a buff. Yeah. Now we're on to Immortals. Immortals are getting touched on. Mineral cost have been decreased from 275 to 250. Weapon cooldown is increased from 1.04 to 1.14, so it's roughly 10% in between attacks. So this is a weird one for me. Watching, thinking about this, 25 minerals on an immortal level unit is almost zero. It means nothing. It is what a zealot's. I don't know. A zealot's 100 minerals, right? So you're getting refunded a quarter of a zealot for 10% less attack speed on an immortal, which it's a hard nerf, which in most instances is like the meat and potatoes of your mid-game army. So that's a weird. I don't fully follow why they did that. I'd rather them have knocked 25 gas off of it.
For sure. No doubt about that.
That would make way more sense than 25. 25 minerals means nothing on a immortal. I don't know what the fuck that's about. So let's see what they say about it. The damage output from immortals seem to be too high. Who has ever said out loud that the immortals were doing too much damage? I haven't heard or seen anyone on any platform that I follow people for StarCraft on, whether they are Terran Andes or anything. Nobody has ever said the fucking immortals. Fuck!
Bro.
They do too much damage.
Marauders are now going to fucking destroy now Marauders which are weak. Same with Roaches, which are weak against Immortals. When they have high numbers, basically a 10% decrease in cooldown between attacks is huge. It's a massive nerf.
They say that it's they seem to be too high in Protoss versus Zerg, specifically across all levels of play. Dude, nobody's ever said that,
bro.
While Immortals' mineral cost is slightly decreased to compensate for the DPS nerf, which is a joke. It's
wow, what a huge compensation! Thank you for the 25 minerals back. Wow, that sounds like Canadian government. Yo, I got your carbon tax rebate in your bank account. Thank us.
I was gonna say it sounds like National Lampoon's Family Christmas Vacation, where Clark doesn't get a bonus that he's expecting; he gets a Jelly of the Month club instead.
Nuts.
This set of changes should help Zerg survive against various Protoss mid-game and late-game attacks.
They don't need to worry about that anymore. Shield batteries are dead. They're gonna end the game. They're gonna mass Ling Roach, and they're gonna push your shit in, bro.
That's such a weird choice. That's such a weird.
I mean, it's either that or give us the mothership core back and let us fucking overcharge the damn Nexus again.
Something. I mean, they do go down that road, as I'm sure you know. We'll see that.
Yeah, I mean,
Disruptor.
for the mothership?
Yeah, Disruptor Purification Nova radius increased from 1.375 to 1.5.
This is the biggest meme ever. I actually think this is an even bigger meme than the fucking than the shield battery. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Increased from 1.375 to 1.5. Purification Nova damage decreased from 145 plus 55 versus shields to 100 plus 100. So they're trading heavy health damage for shield damage. Now this is a weird one because it clearly only benefits Protoss versus Protoss games. Against everything else, against Zerg and Terran, this is a nerf.
You're getting
enormous nerf.
You can't even kill fucking basic units with one hit anymore. That's wild. You mean to tell me one of the most challenging units,
micro-intensive units,
exactly, to use already when you're Protoss, and you basically have to have a hotkey for every fucking unit. Sentry, you need a hotkey. Your army, you need a hotkey.
Shield
Templar,
batteries,
you need a hotkey. Shield battery, you need a hotkey. Fucking Disruptor, you need a hotkey. And you need to move you need to move the ball, everything. You mean to tell me that when I shoot off my Disruptor now, I can't even fucking kill a roach or something? What? Why even make them?
It's gonna be it's gonna be very
bruh.
And again, it's weird. It's a little weird to me because even in high level play, I'm not seeing like spammed disruptors. They show up occasionally in really specific scenarios, but it's not like a Protoss player starts spamming disruptors like fucking constantly. So just I don't know. I don't like. It's just weird that they took it so far. Like, I get that maybe they're trying to avoid, especially in the lower levels where somebody doesn't have the wherewithal to be able to get out of the way of the dodgeball getting fucking nuked from orbit. I get it, but like, it might have been a little aggressive to drop that shit 45 points of health. That's interesting. Their comments: disruptors might be very difficult to play against on the lower levels, but the higher, I keep saying these things. I actually never read their comments until now, so forgive me if I sound like I'm just mimicking what I read before. On the highest level, their efficiency dropped down significantly after the previous changes. This set of changes is aimed to bring back some of Disruptor's old power. What? Making avoiding any damage more challenging for the professional players, while at the same time making single disruptor hits less punishing in the worst case scenario. With the new, why are you adjusting for the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario involves somebody being really good at micro with the disruptor, really good positioning to be able to get in range to make it happen, and then have the other player be punished for not paying attention, and that's all they're being punished for, because if they are paying attention, running away from a disruptor ball is not a hard thing to do. So it's weird that they're accounting for the worst case scenario.
What I think they should have done, if they want to nerf disruptors, nerf the cooldown time. make it a little bit longer in between charges.
Yeah, so that if you fuck it up, then you gotta wait.
Because you still need before you still needed 2 hits to hit a fucking lurker, and lurkers are the most brain dead Zerg unit known to man that require 0 skill. None. And now you're gonna see them even more, that lurkers or Hydra basically have fucking blink or charge. The game's a meme, bro. It's a meme. They meme the fuck out of Protoss. It's actually, the race is dead. It's dead.
What's crazy is that all of these changes have done nothing but strengthen ZVP thus far. And they were all ZVP was already absolute fucking meme-tastic at the tournament level.
I gotta hit a lurker 3 times to blow one up with a fucking disruptor.
That's tough.
Really?
That's tough.
Really? And you can just go ahead and grab my fucking disruptors from a million miles away and suck them into a bunch of lurkers for insta-death?
So they say disruptors will no longer one-shot units like Marauders, Roaches, and Ravagers while being more efficient against units like Marines, Ghosts, Banelings, and Hydras, as well as having more potential in certain PvP scenarios.
But Hydras can fucking blink around now. I mean, StarCraft, they created an RTS that has gone down the road of game of millimeters. It has always been, you can lose the game in T-2 seconds. Why are we starting to steer away from that now? Let's be real here. Disruptors were oftentimes used not as units of aggression outside of PvP. They were defensive units or desperation units. They were the DT, the new DT, when behind disruptor. People aren't just opening up disruptors to open up disruptors. Like, you're usually in some sort of dire need, or you have lurkers out on the map and you have a few of these things to blow up the lurkers so that you can actually move. And in PvP, disruptors can be a fucking meme. Because oftentimes, shit players will have all their stalkers clumped or all their units clumped, and you just bring one disruptor into the fog of war, and then boom. And then they rage quit. Wow. Great job, Blizzard panel, whoever this is.
Mothership. Mineral gas and supply cost have been increased from 306 to 408. Shield and HP has increased from 250 to 350. Maximum damage increased from 6 damage to 6 separate beams that do 6 damage at 4 beams times 4, the maximum number of targets. For example, the mothership now targets up to 4 units at the same time.
How cool. Who gets motherships?
Well, okay, so neat that it will attack multiple units, but by the time you get to a mothership, how much is...
They're showing a mothership dancing around, killing a bunch of units that can't attack it. It's a fucking meme, bro. By the time you get a mothership, they either have mass corruptors, Vikings, fucking whatever. That shit's getting obliterated. It's getting obliterated, dude.
So it looks cool in action, but I don't think it means much.
Because
of how long it takes to get to a mothership, and now they've made it even though it's healthier and does more damage, adding an extra 100 minerals and gas and an extra 2 supply is, that shit's expensive. And what's funny is
would you rather buy, Adam? A Nexus or a mothership? Which one?
Well, yeah,
I'm taking a Nexus I'm expanding every time. 400 with 8 supply? The fuck?
The best part about all of this too is I saw somebody posted them on the PTR playing this, and they were sitting the Nexus over top of a bunch of units and in buildings. It was in the main, and the mothership refused to attack any units. It selected buildings for all 6 beams the whole time.
Oh my god, bro.
So they'd have to at least fix that before they send that bitch out, because otherwise, whoa baby. That's tough.
Ooh, baby is right.
So I don't know. So like, Protoss got one, what you might be able to call one almost buff, and then 3 or so straight up nerfs outright.
Big nerfs. Big.
Ironically, mostly against the race that they were already the weakest against. So that's amazing. Next up, Terran changes. Bunkers, missile turrets, sensor towers. The salvage ability added for missile turret and sensor towers, also returning now 75% of their cost. Salvage process is now being canceled upon taking damage. So if you're caught in the middle of salvaging and you take damage, it dies, and or it dies or just canceled outright. I don't know. Probably just cancels it until it's no longer attacked for a period. Developer comment: this change will allow Terrans to be more efficient. If there's one thing Terrans have struggled with forever,
efficiency. Yeah,
it's efficiency. They have always struggled with efficiency.
Wow.
Terrans to be more efficient while moving from one defense point to another. Also, their weakest thing. Terrans always been horrible at defense creep. It's been their weakest point. Nobody has ever been concerned with Terran creep, ever. While at the same time increasing their overall investment in early game attacks featuring bunkers, as the salvage is now much easier to counter.
Bro, do you know how much Terran proxy cheese you're gonna deal with now? There's almost no. Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see all these bunker rushes and all this other shit that's gonna happen. And you're just gonna keep salvaging, and you're just gonna get your money back. You're okay, yeah, a little bit of damage. Let me just get 75% of my cost back real quick.
Yikes!
Let me put up some defense, right? Shield battery. Fuck the shield battery. Let's go ahead and give Terran more ability to turtle. Let's just do that, because I mean, in the first paragraph we just talked about, we don't want that anymore, right? So let's just give them the ability, just throw down a couple of extra bunkers. But
in
don't
the early
worry,
game at home.
In the early game at home, right? So that we can stop any type of aggression. Then we'll get a 75% rebate. So now while your opponent decided to rush, now they are behind tech-wise. You've managed to defend, because you can still repair these things, right? So, if you couldn't repair them, I'd be like, okay, you can't repair them now, that's fine. This makes sense. But you can still repair them, then get 75% back and just keep going about your business. Wow. Okay.
Planetary Fortress armor decreased from 3 to 2, so celebrate. Back to the sensor tower, mineral and gas cost decreased from 125 to 100, 100 to 100, 150. So not only are they, getting the 75% salvage back, which at least this claws back the amount of money they get, it still makes it easier and cheaper for them to do it whenever they want up front. Radar range decreased from 27 to 22. That's a 34% area size reduction. Okay, let's see what they say about this. The combination of planetary fortresses and sensory towers is a very powerful camping tool in various late-game scenarios. This set of changes makes planetary fortresses slightly weaker against basic army units like Zerglings, Marines, and Zealots, making sensor towers much less efficient in covering the whole map. However, sensor towers might now be useful in earlier stages of the game, considering their major reduced cost and adding salvage ability.
How so?
How?
Dude, sensor towers is one of the biggest fails in the entire Terran arsenal. What an underutilized piece of technology. Hot ass. Terran always got a bajillion fucking scans going anyway. I rarely see a sensor tower. You know when you see sensor towers? You see sensor towers when you've already lost the game. When they're on like their 5th base and there's planetaries up, then they just start throwing sensors just to see where you're going to try and drop or where you're trying to move. That's the only time you ever use them. You never see sensor towers in the early game, ever. They're a waste of minerals. You could make these things 50-50, and they ain't probably putting them bitches up. And if they are, they're doing it on the sides of maps. And if you find it and you kill it, great. It just buys them time and they see what's coming. That's about it. That's it.
Question, because this is, despite how much I've watched, we see sensor towers so rarely, I actually don't remember. SCVs are required to build them, yes?
Yes.
Okay, here's an idea. Allow them to use command center energy to drop them orbitally.
I'm not against that. I think
because
you need to have
now
vision
you can,
of the area. You shouldn't be able to just throw them anywhere,
no,
but you need to be able to have vision.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And now at least you can put them further out on the map earlier in the game, likely, without having SCVs running all over the place. It might mean that if you're controlling any other tower in the area that you're allowed to, but and honestly, yeah, vision and drop it orbitally. I would say that would be my idea to make them at least viable in a more in a better sense.
I don't care about this. This is clearly a buff,
doesn't mean
but
it,
I don't think it's a buff that's going to change the it's not. I don't think it's really overly helping.
But you know what
Terran.
is? You know what is? What's coming next, Mr. Black? Hellions! Blue flame upgrade bonus damage versus light has increased from +5 to +9.
Oh, you skipped orbit. Did you skip orbital commands?
Oh, did I? Oh, my apologies. I got too excited
Oh,
there.
yeah,
Orbital
you can't,
command.
You can't.
Extra supplies call down now increase the HP of supply depots to 500. Immediately repair. Wait, does it repair to full?
Oh, yeah.
So not just adding whatever the bonus health of the
Correct.
But the whole thing is
max HP. You
trying
to
guys,
you want to bust into the Terran base and get rid of those 2 fucking supply depots that are always built just before it goes down. Full health. Get fucked. Huge buff.
Are these guys out their damn mind?
Massive buff.
Bro, okay, now hear me out.
Literally changes the whole fucking scope. You have Zerglings trying to go up a ramp, trying to get in. You wait for because you only can do so much DPS because there's only so many lings that can attack and surround when you're up at the ramp. You don't even have to.
Oh my god, it doesn't even it's not even something that you can out DPS. It's literally instant,
bro. It's instant, which means you no longer have to pull. You no longer have to pull a shit ton of SCVs to repair it. So you can keep on mining, doing your shit, and just throw that bitch down. So not only do you save minerals, but on top of that, you also get more supply. So, you don't have to put down an extra supply depot when you normally would. It's a fucking meme, bro. It's an actual meme, bro.
Let me give them the answer to this. Increase the cost of doing it by, let's say, 25%. Okay? And when it drops, it only adds health to the base amount that's still remaining of the supply drop itself. So if I'm just throwing numbers out, let's say, because I can't remember the numbers, let's say a supply depot normally has 400, which is definitely not it, but let's just say it had 400 for the sake of just numbers, and the supply comes down, adds 100. When that drops, and it's at 200 health left because they're attacking, they drop it.
Goes to 300.
Goes to 300. But it costs more to do.
It goes to 5. So what you do is you wait until just before it's going to die. And then you throw that bitch down. Basically just and it's instantaneous, man. And remember, you get more supply too. So fuck pulling. Isn't it funny too how you're watching this little GIF and all the SCVs? They don't even need to repair anymore. There's no urgency.
They're standing there.
They're just standing there. They're better off just going to mine minerals.
Here's the other way that I would be almost okay with this. Almost. One, again, has to cost more. Period. Cost more. Because it's doing more than it did before. The health can go back to full, but it's over time as if X number of SCVs are repairing it. What's the energy cost of a mule versus the energy cost of a supply drop?
50.
It's 50-50?
I'm pretty sure they're both identical. Somebody in chat can correct me if I'm wrong.
Let's make this 75. Because if you're dropping a mule and then make the health repair about the same as, let's say, if 2 mules were dropping to repair it. So that the health regen comes back at the speed of 2 mules repairing, but it costs 75 points instead of 50.
Yeah.
And they can be out DPS'd instead of instantly repairing, because what we're watching here is it's taking damage, and then it blinks to full. But if there was the ability to out DPS it as it gets back to full, so it has, let's say it heals 500 HP. So if over that healing time, if it starts at 100 and it would go to theoretically overheal it, the damage over time happens on a rate of that of the repair of 2 mules.
Allowing it to become a niche defensive tool against various defensive and counterattacks, dude. Suck a fat fucking cock. You know, you want to know? You know what I think they should do, Adam? I don't think they should have done any of this. Why? Why are you just buffing the orbital command? Like what? Dude, we don't even need to play semantics here. Just no. Why? You've done enough.
You don't, because in chat they're talking about right now, you know, the idea where you're always going to want to get a mule anyway. I don't think that's the case when it does something like this, or even if it did what I described. It would in that instance, as I described, be very, niche scenarios in which it would make sense to do. I do think it makes functional sense that if you're dropping more shit on top of the building, it should probably add to its health. Do I think it should repair it to full? No. Should it do it instantaneously? Fuck no. But I like the idea. Again, execution's insano. They're not increasing the cost. It instantly repairs. And they get more supply for it. It's completely fucking bonkers. So if I was doing it, it's 75 energy. It either only increases by the health that it would add anyway, so plus 100. So if it has 200 health remaining, it now has 300 health when it drops. And if it's not that, then it repairs to full, but at a rate of 2 mules repairing it. And it doesn't keep going until it's full health. It goes only for the 500 health that it would have recharged.
Yeah, then nobody will use it.
And then you can outpace it.
But nobody will use it. Because this isn't even a problem. This isn't even a problem in StarCraft. This is nuts. Anyway, Hellion.
This is my favorite one. This is actually possibly my favorite change. From the standpoint of, holy shit. Blue Flame upgrade bonus damage versus light increased from +5 to +9. It almost doubled, which means, if I'm not mistaken, workers are now 2-shot per 1 Hellion.
Yep. Shit's getting toasty.
1 Hellion can 2-shot multiple workers in a line. What?
And it's fun. And it's funny because, like, if the thing like shield battery still existed, right, where you could overcharge, I wouldn't really cry too much about this. But the fact that you don't have that anymore, I mean, dude, you better not let 2 Hellions get into your base under any circumstance. You're fucked.
Bro, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck about Hellbats? Ain't nobody give a fuck about Hellbats. Nobody fucking fuck a Hellbat. Fuck a Hellbat. You get +9 on a Hellion? Who's converting to Hellbat? Fuck a Hellbat. Nobody. You build 3 or 4 Hellions, you drop them, and you toast entire lines instantaneously.
Yeah, because as soon as you pull and you try and you just try and move your probes or you move your drones or whatever the case may be, You're fucked. They're all
Fucked.
going to group up. Dead. Gone.
Fucked.
What can you do?
What do they say? As the Blue Flame upgrade is rarely utilized as a harassment tool. This change is added to allow Hellions with Blue Flame to two-shot workers of all races. This might also help underused mech playstyles in all matchups and promote generally more active early and mid-game from the Terran players.
Who's on this council? Terran players. I am convinced these people don't play StarCraft. I'm convinced. Anyway, what's next?
But wait, there's more. The Liberator! Advanced ballistics effect changed from providing +2 range in defender mode to increasing the radius in defender mode from 5 to 6.25, which is a 56% area increase.
Bro, there's a meme where you see the Liberator just over a bunch of like one pylon, and you can't warp in anywhere. As soon as you warp in, you're dead. You can't do, like, they just circle over the whole fucking spot, and you just one shot, boom, dead, boom, dead, boom, dead. The whole thing's a joke. Don't you just love it when Liberators fly to the corner of the maps and then they siege up and they can still fuck your mineral line? Isn't
They've
that just
already been battling that with the +2 range in defender mode, where maps were getting broken by Liberator's ability to get into corners that were never intended to be abused that way in the first place. And now their solution is to increase the range or the radius by 56%? Smart Servo's upgrade is now also affecting Liberators. So not only is the range or the radius way bigger, it gets better. With Smart Servos, Liberator's siege time is decreased from 2.89 seconds to 2.12, which is a 26.6% reduction. And unsiege time is decreased from 1.46 to 1.13, a 23% reduction. That means that they are sieging in just over 2 seconds and unsieging in just over a single second. Holy fuck. Let's see what they have to say. Despite the previous advanced ballistics nerf, Liberator's maximum attack range is still an important limitation for the map-making process.
Oh, man.
As well as a frustrating mechanic to play against, so we decided to make it even more frustrating. This set of changes is aimed to test a different approach for the unit, which further decreases its maximum range in line with the Tempest changes, but allows it to cover more area on the sides and underneath the Liberator in Defender mode. Thors!
Where are the nerfs?
Explosive payload!
Where are they?
Splash damage mode.
Where are the nerfs?
Damage is increased from 6 plus 6 versus light to 8 plus 4 versus light. Explosive payload splash radius is increased from 0.5 with 100% splash damage to 0.5 with 100% damage, 0.75 with 75% damage, and 1.25 with 50% damage. So the further away they are, the less damage they take from the center of that splash zone. Explosive payload attack range is decreased from 10 to 7. Thank fuck, because holy shit, if they didn't at least reduce the range, what the shit?
Nothing on ghosts. Wow.
I don't like this Thor change. I personally think is fine. Of all the Terran changes, I think this is fine. I think this makes them more viable in scenarios in which they were supposed to be viable originally. and weren't. It's probably the only thing Terran has in this whole patch that makes literally a lick of fucking sense. Developer comments, Thor's explosive payload mode, while being default for the unit, is rarely utilized outside of TVZ against Mutalisk and is overall much weaker than its high-impact counterpart. This experimental set of changes is aimed to test a very different approach for the explosive payload, allowing Thor to deal much more damage to all types of units at the cost of major attack range reductions. I think that makes...
Good time to be a Terran player.
About the only
time to
sense.
be a Terran player. Terran's up good, man. Terran's up real good.
Zerg changes. Now, this is where, I mean, again, when I first went through these, the Terran stuff was already kind of like, there's some wishy-washy bullshit in there. Then I got to Zerg and I went, oh, my lord. Queens, mineral cost increased from 150 to 175. And you're thinking, hey, that sounds pretty good. And then you read the next line. Hatcheries, mineral cost decreased from 300 to 275. Spine crawlers, build time decreased from 36 seconds to 32. They were saying they wanted to reduce turtling, right? I'm just checking. Damage increased from 25 plus 5 versus armored to a flat 30. Spore crawlers. Damage increased from 15 to 20.
Rip! Oracle.
HP decreased from 400 to 300.
Oh my god. Bro. But Jeff, think you can overcharge the Oracle now. Took up our energy. Oh my god.
Zerg playstyles against Terran and Protoss players on higher levels are mainly focused on defensive gameplay, featuring mass queens. The efficiency of such defensive styles with strong execution means that Terran and Protoss players might also prefer to play passive, which doesn't lead to active early games. Instead of this set of changes, while not majorly influencing Zerg openings with a limited number of queens, is aimed to make mass queens playstyles less affordable. Spine crawler and spore crawler changes will help compensate for potentially smaller defensive impact from queens at the same time. Spore crawler HP was decreased to make sure spore crawler damage increased is not utilized for more efficient late game camping. So what's weird about this is that they've solved a legitimate, or trying to solve a legitimate problem in which mass queens with transfuse is a wall that is very challenging to break. And then they immediately replaced it with just a different version of the wall.
Yes. Here comes
if they had just made queen changes and didn't touch spore crawlers or spine crawlers or anything, fine.
Here comes the fucking Catalina wine mixer.
Oh boy.
Here it is.
Oh boy. It's the fucking Catalina wine mixer. Move speed on creep with muscular augments upgrade decreased from 511 to 483, which is a 5.5%
that's the Hydralisk we're talking about here.
Reduction. That's the Hydra. This is Hydralisk. New ability added, Dash. Dash is researched in the Hydralisk Den, requiring Hive. The upgrade costs 100 minerals and 100 gas, and takes 64 seconds. Dash is an active, non-targeted ability with a 10-second cooldown. Upon its use, Hydralisk receive 60% more move speed bonus for 0.71 seconds. So they reduced their overall speed on creep by 5.5% to give them a 60% move speed bonus for about a second to close gaps. So if I had to take a guess, this would almost completely nullify a blink stalker getting away. If they're on creep, specifically. I would imagine the Stalkers blink, the Hydra charge if they're on creep, and they will catch up and kill the Stalker.
We haven't even talked about disruptors, which you clearly need against Zerg when you get into the later games. I mean, bro, but don't worry, they up the radius by like 1% or 1 point or whatever the fuck it is. Man, these Hydras are gonna be like, yeah, ha, ha, ha. You're gonna go. They're gonna like you're gonna be able to use these in either a defensive or an aggressive manner. It's basically Blink for Hydra. It's crazy. Hydra, some of the most craziest DPS in the game, and you buy them in mass, and then you turn them into Lurker. Wow. What?
Let's hear the developer comments on this bad boy. The idea of this ability is to add more micromanagement potential for the key Zerg unit against mass area of effect damage spells like Psionic Storms and Purification Novas. Okay, so here's the deal. On creep, Hydra were already really fast. And getting out of storms and around storms or splitting them was plenty fast. If you wanted to do that, increase their speed by 5.5% and call it a day. And just have them split like Marines. We gonna give Marines stim charge? Where when they stim, oh wait, that's already a fucking thing. Increase the speed bonus. Does everyone need blink?
I mean, why can't you give us charge lots? Why can't you give this ability to charge lots and let us go in and out? Let us charge out of a fight too. Why don't you do that? This is nuts. This is nuts. And I'm only pissed because I'm a Protoss player and I just see all of the holes in which this build presents itself. I mean, even my oracles, when I play oracles, you're even going to be able to dash to catch up to an oracle to snipe them off. If you're Terran, you're up against BCs, you're up against Thor, you're up against virtually anything. You want to follow a medevac that's picking some shit up, want to get out? Hi! Dead.
I have the fix, Mr. Black. Only allow them to use it on their own creep.
I have a better fix.
Don't have it at all.
Delete dash altogether. Don't have it. What the fuck are you smoking?
If it's gonna stay, I would only allow it on creep. The fact that they have a GIF where they're using it off creep, the whole idea behind Zerg is that they're the strongest when they can swarm, and they swarm when they're on their own creep because they have a movement bonus.
You want to hit them with a storm?
Off creep, they're supposed to be vulnerable. That's the whole purpose. That's why the DPS on a Hydra is so big. They're glass cannons. They're supposed to be a positional unit. You're not supposed to be able to just mass them and walk them across open ground with no fucking creep and be able to have a get out of jail free card.
Bruh. And also the animation looks like ass, by the way.
Yeah, it's not great.
Anyway.
Infestors. Microbial Shroud is now sticking to units, providing them with its effect for 3.6 seconds while off the Shroud. Despite being very strong on paper, Microbial Shroud is not widely used in Zerg vs Protoss late game, mostly due to units under Shroud being vulnerable to area of effect damage spells, with Shroud sticking to the units for 3.6 seconds outside of the actual Shroud area. Zerg players are now able to micro more freely while still enjoying the benefits of the infest. Okay, so we've given Hydra dash, and now the Shroud follows them, giving them even more survivability off creep. Okay. Ultralisks. While moving, Ultralisk is now able to push allied units out of the way. So if you're trying to go up a ramp...
Stormgate did it first.
If you're going up a ramp, get out of the way, Ultralisk is going up. Honestly, I think this is fine.
This is good. I mean,
this is a good
been
change.
a thing regardless. I mean, this is a buff, but I mean, I think it's a buff that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
They're a massive
Ultralisks
unit.
are a huge unit. Even when you're not talking about choke points, trying to arrange the Zerg army to be having like Ultralisk always in the front is a bit silly. I like this change. I think it's good.
Why didn't they do this for Archons? Oh, that's right. I know.
Protoss. So any unit that's considered massive should have that ability. Is basically the idea.
It's just ultras.
Broodlords. Oh, this is actually you had your favorite. This is my favorite.
Oh god.
Broodlords. Broodling HP is increased from 20 to 30. They didn't nerf them. They buffed them.
Yeah,
Broodling weapon cooldown decreased from 0.57 to 0.46. And what's worse is apparently there was a bug that was making them weaker, and that's fixed. Fixed the bug which prevented Broodlords from dealing full damage while shooting from maximum distance.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Fun patch, Adam.
Listen, I already gave you guys the blueprint. All right? They leave the fucking area, the broodlings die. I gave you the fucking blueprint, and you're out here buffing them. Here's the problem with broodlords. Is that while they are not widely used right now, it's not necessarily because they're particularly weak. It's just because there are other options that people feel or find more efficient. The Broodlord buffing or buffing the Broodlord is a really delicate dial, because you can touch that dial, you can sneeze on it, and the Broodlords go from nobody's using them to it's the only unit in every fucking game that Zerg plays, and it's demolishing everyone. You know how I know that? We've already seen it. Broodlords were literally an entire meta for like the fucking longest goddamn time. And then they changed them, and they became a meta again in a different way, and now here we are, and I guess they're looking to make the meta again.
Yeah, I mean, listen, all I can do is just play the patch. You know, on face value, this is painful. Who knows? Might play differently. I'm sure that there are probably some strategies in which I have not thought about on the fly. That are probably unique and probably make the game experience a little bit different, which can be fun. Something that StarCraft needs is a mix-up. But it's hard for me to take my biasness out of it as a Protoss player to see the race get just reamed on so badly in comparison to the other two races, when this race was already suffering on the highest scale, like in terms of gameplay, and we're talking professional, and then sort of ex-pros like myself, or people that have, you know, high enough MMR where you're against sweaties. Listen, I'm just grateful that I cast the game primarily. I don't play it full time. Well, I can say pretty much definitively that if I ever played StarCraft on a full-time basis again with this type of patch, I would probably switch races. It would be time. It would be time.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of things, I suppose, in this patch that you could look at, and somebody might be able to make arguments for certain things. The Protoss shit is like nearly an across-the-board nerf with no real help given, and then almost, you know, most of what's done for the other two races specifically makes them stronger against Protoss on top of that. So it's a really weird... It seems cross-purpose with what their goals were that they outlined in the beginning. Man. I'm very interested to see how the test goes and see what changes, if anything, before they press the go live button.
Yep.
If we're lucky, maybe this is one of those situations where they've dialed everything super far up so that in the PTR they can figure it out and dial it back. But there are just some things in here that, like, I just can't even fathom. It's just like a couple of these make absolutely no sense no matter how much I try to, like, comprehend what they're really trying to get at. So we'll wait and see, I guess.